Well, welcome. We are so excited to see everybody today. And I'm Jean Miller with Widmark-Wright Realty Group, Keller Williams. I am the administrator, for lack of a better, shorter term. And I have three wonderful professional people here to go ahead and let us know what's happening with the current market. So we have Claire Widmark-Wright, our principal broker. We have Bob Hailey with New American Funding, and we have Kimberly Allen, a senior escrow officer from First American Title. So Claire, let's just go ahead and hone in on the state of the market. What is happening with supply and demand right now?
Yeah, that's actually the question. That's actually the problem, is a continued lack of supply and a continued greater demand than supply. So we're seeing that in housing available for sale. We have 1.8 months of inventory, which means at the current rate of selling closed sales, if nothing new came on the market and everything sold, even the ugly stuff, we would be out of inventory in 1.8 months. As a comparison to 2008, when the crash happened, we had 15 to 19 months of inventory. So we have just a lack of homes for people to buy and more people that need to buy than homes for them to buy. So it is a supply and demand issue for sure.
And part of that issue is just rentals as well. So tell us a little bit about how that is impacting housing here in our area.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because you look at the numbers for last year, and Oregon had an influx of 45,000 people move to Oregon. We actually had 35,000 people leave Oregon, but 10,000 of those people that came to Oregon settled in Portland. And so that is 10,000 people looking for housing. So we also, with the rental market, we continue the last several years, and even right now, we continue to toggle in the top 5 in the nation for lowest vacancy rates. So not only is there a low amount of homes for people to buy, rentals, people finding a safe, clean home to rent, there's just no vacancy. I think right now we're between 3 and 3.5% vacancy. I think we're number 3 or number 2 in the nation for lowest vacancy rates, which just means it's just hard to find an apartment or a condo or a house to rent, let alone to buy. So that's the other issue. There is literally a housing crisis, but not too much of it. There's just not enough. And I don't think they could build enough homes for us right now on a building perspective either. We are dramatically behind the number of homes that need to be built or become available to purchase and to rent. So yeah.
And Oregon kind of responded in a really unusual and unprecedented way to that very topic last year. So tell us more about what that is specifically.
Yeah, so I believe Oregon was first in the nation to do this, but the statewide stopped single family zoning. So in most neighborhoods, like our neighborhood, we don't have a homeowner association that governs the zoning. And if my neighbor decided to sell their home, someone could buy that property, knock it down, and build an apartment building or 4 row houses. The single family zoning is gone. And that just means unless your area is managed by a homeowner association, an HOA, anybody could buy a lot next to you in what was formerly a single family dwelling zoning and build a multifamily zoning property, a building or a home or duplex or quadplex, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a big change. And what we saw is that happens statewide, not even just Portland, but statewide. And then other states are following suit. So California is another state that followed pretty quickly after Oregon put that into place. They're just trying to infill. They're trying to get more housing in housing density throughout the state, even in the rural areas. They want to be able to get more homes, more housing in there.
Well, and swinging back to the state of the current market for buyers and sellers, what can you tell us about that at this moment?
Yeah, it's a busy spring. Not only are people kind of a captive audience at home, they're looking at homes online, but we've had a huge influx of new listings just like the last 15 days of April. Lots of new listings on the market across the Portland Metro Vancouver area, McMinnville to Ridgefield to Gresham to Yamhill County. We're seeing a tremendous amount of new listings, and then correspondingly a lot of homes going pending and a lot of homes closing. The closing homes mean that those transactions were pretty much started in March. I'm not paying a lot of attention to closings. I'm looking at pendings, and when I see 45 pendings in one price group in Portland, wow, people are out there. And I'll tell you that, you know, under 425 or under 450, most transactions are in multiple offer status. And I would say a lot of buyers have kind of held off or held back a little bit, not quite sure what's going to happen. And they're not even in the market, and we're still in multiple offers. So this is a good time to buy. Prices aren't going down. This year, our average price in the Portland metro area is $463, I believe. And last year, same time last year, it was $450. So values are going up. We have a supply and demand issue with not enough housing being available, and homes under 425, 450, most are in multiple offers. I can't think of the last time I wrote an offer that was not in multiple offers.
Well, thank you, Claire. That was very helpful. So now we have a little bit more of a reality check and great helpful information about just things are happening.
They are. It's spring.
People are buying. And one of our favorite people to wrap into that process is our mortgage expert, Bob. He has 30 years of experience in what he does. So Bob, I'd like to just invite you in and kind of touch on that whole 2008 housing crisis that's still very fresh in our minds. How is what's happening now compare or not compare to that situation?
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter out there about that right now. And you know, the last crisis that we had in 2008 was really driven by people that should not have maybe purchased a home, were qualifying with horrible types of loans that were available to them. Stated income, no asset verification, 100% financing for all of those types of lending. And when that market dried up, when that lending ability dried up, those people were stuck. They couldn't refinance out of those really bad loans into a decent loan, and it just snowballed from there. So that was really the crux of that crash, was in a big way bad lending practices. Since then, people are putting money down. They're qualifying. We're verifying their employment, their assets, their bank records, their history of employment. Their credit is more scrutinized than it was at that point. The credit score requirements are higher than they were back then. So when you're looking at a default opportunity with something like the virus that's going around, people are going to be more likely to try to save their home because they have money invested in it. So I think that's one big piece that is different from then to now, is that, you know, prior to the crash, we were at the lowest unemployment rate we've seen in the Portland metro area in history of Portland. Everybody was working, everybody was making money. Therefore, the housing opportunity was very robust. And I believe, as Claire mentioned, that's going to continue.
Well, thank you so much for addressing that. I know Claire mentioned the urban growth boundary and then Oregon's response to that being the infill. So how do you see that as well? Like, what information can you add to that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it's very relevant to the strength of our market. Supply and demand is the key to any kind of commodity. And when you're dealing with supply issues, values are higher, and we just have a supply challenge. And with our government's mandate of keeping that urban growth boundary tight, keeping our national forests and all of that farmland protected, that's just putting more and more pressure on where do we add homes, where do we add the ability to put people in the Portland area in housing. And as that stays tight, it shores up our values. It causes them to increase because only so many people can buy homes, and if you've got more buyers than sellers, values go up. That's how prices and markets increase in value. So as long as that continues, along with the employment being so strong, it's two key pieces that are very very strong in the Portland West Coast area.
Well, and tell us more about those employment rates then, especially with what we've seen happening over the last month.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real concern. Obviously, you know, the first unemployment week when they opened up unemployment for people losing their jobs, the nation lost 6.6 million jobs. I mean, that's an unprecedented number, and certainly because of the situation we're in. But prior to that, Portland was, I think we were down to 2.3% unemployment, a absolute lowest in history for the Portland area. And when you have all of those people working, dual income families, you know, I keep hearing, how far can these go? How far can these go? You know, how much can prices really continue to increase? You look at a San Francisco, they're calling us the next San Francisco. You look at San Francisco, 30 years ago, exact same situation. Nowhere to build, that people were going there in droves, and there just wasn't enough housing. And you've got a sustainable model there that I think is being mirrored here in the Portland area, just because everybody wants to live here. It's a great place to be.
Well, we all love it. That's for
Absolutely.
sure. And Bob, you mentioned interest rates. So tell us a little bit more about what's happening currently and how that's impacting mortgages for people.
Yeah, rates have been a roller coaster the last 6 weeks. You know, the Fed, prior to the virus, dropped the federal funds rate by 0.5%. National economy was softening, wasn't really expanding to the rate that the Fed wanted to see. So they gave us a little juice with that drop prior to the virus. And then within a week and a half, 2 weeks of the virus really taking hold, they drop rates again, basically to the floor. The federal funds rate is at 0 to 0.25%. And mortgage rates followed that very quickly. They took advantage of that drop, and a lot of people jumped on the refinance boat. Well, they really knew what this virus was doing. Since then, market has reacted violently, very volatile, 3, 4, 5 interest rate changes in one day, which just doesn't happen typically. And rates jumped a full percent about 2 weeks into this, just out of fear. Since then, they've settled back down. Rates are almost back down to the historic lows that we saw 5, 6 weeks ago. So it's a great time to buy. If you're looking to move and buy your next for a long period of time home that you want to stay in, these rates aren't going to be here forever. It's a great time to get your house on the market if you own one. If not, it's a great time to get out there and buy.
Well, thank you for that. It is a great time to buy, as Claire clarified earlier as well. And really an important piece of that process is everything that happens on the escrow side. So Kim, can you talk to us a little bit about how closings are happening right now? What do we need to know about the climate of closings?
Well, yeah, so closings are happening. They look and feel a little bit different than they have in the past prior to this pandemic, but the real estate market is robust, and we're continuing to have closings occurring every single day. I mean, making a few adjustments just to some protocols and allowing every aspect of the business that folks that are working from home, we're just making some different allowances, but closings are happening every day.
Well, thank you. That's great news to hear. I'm glad that you're there for all of us and for all who are buying houses right now. What would you say is the comparison of closings from this year to last year at the same time?
Yeah, so we had an awesome year last year in 2019, amazing, awesome year. And summer turned into fall, which turned into a busy winter. And we've continued that. We were, like Bob was mentioning, rates were really good before all this stuff happened with this illness. And so we were continuing to stay very busy throughout the fall and winter, and spring has continued to be kind of record-breaking numbers. We're still helping lots of folks buy and sell houses, and rates really are determining the activity. And what everyone else has mentioned is the supply and demand is certainly making it an opportune time to buy.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Kim. Anything else that you want to throw into the conversation about just the state of the market and what you're seeing from the escrow side?
Well, I just want to say that I'm super grateful for our Portland area real estate community, the lenders and the agents that have all really embraced these change in the market. And I know the closings do feel and look a little bit different, but they are still happening. And we are really grateful to help folks achieve their dreams of home ownership.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being such a key component for that.
And I want to just butt
Pass
in.
the ball.
I want to
Yes.
butt in really quick. So here's a great example of Kim. You know, so her job is to, they handle all the money, so hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. They handle all the funds, and they also handle all of the legal documents and the deeds and make sure that ownership transfers hands correctly and everyone, you know, loans get paid off. And she really, you know, she's always awesome, but this is especially when you're glad your team is great. When you have, I had a seller who moved back to the East Coast, New York City, and his condo was under contract right when all of this happened. And, you know, in New York City, it was full lockdown. So my client couldn't even get to a notary and, you know, or a lawyer's office to get to a notary. So Kim really beautifully walked him through all of the different options and processes and got us safely, got that football over the goal line. And we have a super happy buyer and a super thrilled, relieved seller, but Kim was really integral to that. So having the right people on your team really does make a big difference. So I just want to say a public shout out again to Kim for all that hard work. So
That's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Yay, Kim. And again, yay, Bob, because his experience is so
Yay,
priceless.
Bob. Yes.
So what do we need to take care of and just making sure that everyone knows?
Oh, I just have to share a
Bob?
screen here for Bob's compliance. You know, lenders are required to always have their NMLS number and their address and their cell phone available. So there's Bob's information. Back to you, Jen.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, virtual hugs to everybody. Claire, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Kim. It's always great to learn from you guys. So thanks again for all your knowledge, and we look forward to next time when we get to chat.
Thank
Hi, guys.
you.
Take care.
See you next Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.